Putting on his most expensive suit, the man came to the class reunion to humiliate his ex-wife. But he didn't expect such a surprise. Emiliano looked with a sad smile at the suit hanging on hangers on the wall rail. He had screwed this rail to the wall in his grandmother's apartment himself during the holidays between 7th and 8th grade. It was at that age that he developed a desire to appeal to girls, and girls, in the teenager's opinion, preferred strong and muscular guys. The suit looked expensive and presentable, just what he needed. A fitted jacket, pressed trousers combined with a black shirt, top class. Emiliano had managed to stay in decent shape, though he didn't do anything special for it. He was lucky with genes, at least something good he inherited from his alcoholic father. By the way, Emiliano barely remembered his parent. He had fled the family when his only son was barely 4 years old. Couldn't handle the responsibility and burdens of adult life. Emiliano, as it turned out, hadn't strayed far from him. The suit was borrowed from his neighbor Fernando, who worked at a bank. Recently bought at a brand boutique, it was intended for special occasions, visits from important guests to the branch, anniversaries, conferences. Fernando had a wife, 2 children, a prestigious job. From the outside, it seemed like life had worked out. It was exactly as such a successful person that Emiliano wanted to appear at the graduates' reunion. Fernando often dropped by Emiliano's place. They would sit over a bottle, talk about life, and apparently Fernando's life wasn't all that happy. Prosperity was enormous daily work. In some sense, Emiliano had it easier. Fewer obligations, less responsibility. And yet at the anniversary reunion of classmates, Emiliano had to look worthy. He wasn't vain, showing off wasn't his thing. It's just that she would be there. And Emiliano was obliged to show his ex-wife that she had been wrong about him. Monstrously wrong. He wanted revenge. There was reason for it. Many years ago, she had done something that could never be forgiven. Just thinking about it still made Emiliano's heart clench painfully. At the evening, he would appear as a successful businessman, wealthy, confident. Perhaps this would make her regret what she had done. Emiliano wanted to see envy, sadness, guilt in her eyes, humiliate her in front of everyone, as she had humiliated him many years ago. Make Selena feel like nothing compared to him. Once status had been so important to her, so that's where he needed to aim. No one would catch Emiliano in a lie. He hadn't communicated with former classmates all this time, and no one knew how the man had lived all these years. School friends had scattered to other cities, and some were no longer alive. He could say anything about himself. The main thing was to think through the legend in detail so as not to slip up on annoying little things. For such an occasion, Emiliano had even rented an expensive foreign car for one evening. It cost half his salary, but nothing was too much for such a cause. Emiliano had learned about the event by chance. He ran into his former homeroom teacher at the shopping center. She was the first to notice him and called out his name. Emiliano was confused at first, didn't understand who was in front of him. He remembered Rosario as a blooming woman who wore bright makeup and invariably sported voluminous hairstyles. But here was a dried-up old woman in whose features the former geography teacher could barely be recognized. They had grown up and the teachers had grown old. Everything was natural. "Emiliano Ignacio," Rosario rejoiced. "What a meeting! How you've grown up!" "Well, how are things? How did you settle in life? You look good, just seem tired." "A little tired," Emiliano nodded. The past week he had gotten drunk to unconsciousness almost every evening. He understood that this wouldn't lead to any good, but he couldn't help himself. Little in this life interested him and little frightened him. Indifference had overwhelmed him, a sense of the meaninglessness of existence, of being unnecessary. This happened to him from time to time. "Will you come to the graduates' reunion? After all, you graduated from school 25 years ago." "An anniversary!" Words poured from Rosario's lips in an endless stream. "You really should try. There aren't many of you left in the city anyway. Selena Montero will also come. You were friends with her at school, weren't you? She happened to be in the city, came to visit her mother. We literally ran into each other yesterday, just like now with you. She said she would definitely come." "Selena?" Emiliano felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Not a trace remained of his former indifference. Even after so many years, she awakened feelings in him. True, ambiguous ones, but at least some. Well, yes, don't you remember her? Even Serrano will be there too. He's a big shot in our city, chief of traumatology, always was smart, and Ofelia Cordova promised to come. Rosario continued listing the names of her former students, but Emiliano was no longer interested. The main thing was that she, Selena, would be at the graduates' reunion. From his former teacher, Emiliano learned the place and time of the meeting. In parting, he said he would really try to make it to the celebration. That evening, he didn't even buy alcohol. Didn't want to. He turned on the TV to distract himself. Useless. Thoughts and memories of her kept creeping into his head anyway. Selena seemed to Emiliano the most beautiful girl in the world at first sight. Their meeting happened at the very beginning of 10th grade. Both of them ended up in mathematical school. Both turned out to be newcomers. However, the whole class was like that. Boys and girls from their city who had shown special mathematical talents gathered at this school to intensively prepare for university admission. Not to say that Emiliano was such a mathematician. His head worked pretty well, that was a fact. But the guy wasn't used to sitting over textbooks, cramming, working through complex problems, learning theorems. While his abilities were enough, he studied excellently. As soon as it came time to show perseverance and hard work, the boy slipped. He was much more attracted to walks with friends, bike riding, dates with girls. Emiliano's mother, who raised him alone, was upset about this. Why are you burying your abilities in the ground? Such a talented guy. Apply a little effort, and any university is in your pocket, and then a good job and position in the society. The woman very much wanted to see her son as a successful and accomplished person. From early childhood, she feared that he would follow in the footsteps of his carefree and dissolute father. She wasn't wrong to fear, as it turned out. In some sense, Emiliano even surpassed the parent he didn't know at all. In general, his mother had a friend in the education department, so Emiliano got into mathematical school. There at the assembly, he saw Selena for the first time. This girl, it would seem, didn't possess any outstanding external qualities. She had neither the voluptuous forms of neighbor Catalina, nor a languid gaze. She didn't even use cosmetics. Thin, tall, somewhat angular, chestnut hair tied in a tight ponytail, big gray eyes, a mole on her cheek. Nothing special, it seemed. But Emiliano couldn't take his eyes off her. She seemed to draw him to herself like a magnet. And then their gazes met, and Emiliano felt warmth spreading in his chest. Never before had girls evoked such strong feelings in him, though he couldn't complain about lack of communication with the opposite sex. For his age, Emiliano was a fairly experienced young man, which he was quite proud of. But Selena was somehow special, not like other girls. Seemingly quiet, modest, but you could sense there was some kind of mystery in her. You could feel that being near her was not only calm and pleasant, but also very interesting. From the very first day, Emiliano tried to get close to this girl. He wasn't used to waiting, being shy, thinking over his decisions for a long time. He wasn't that kind of person. Probably Emiliano slightly frightened Selena with his persistence, but he also interested her. She rebuffed him, but something in her gaze flickered that greatly encouraged Emiliano, and he felt some reciprocal warmth from her too. It became clear. The game had begun, and its outcome was clear. Emiliano would have to make an effort, but in the end he would emerge victorious. A good diligent girl and a noisy hooligan, the terror of all the class nerds, the local ringleader and disturber of peace and lessons. What could be more banal and at the same time more natural? Every school has such a couple. Emiliano acted as he was used to. Bold compliments, teasing, unambiguous hints. Most girls like such behavior, but Selena, she seemed to take offense. Close up, distance herself. And when Emiliano publicly confessed that he loved her, and this was, by the way, not easy, Selena called him an idiot, turned around and left under the uncertain laughter of those around. They, it seemed, also didn't understand whether Emiliano was serious or not. But Emiliano had really fallen in love for the first time in his life, and he understood this perfectly. He thought only of Selena. He dreamed of her. He imagined how they walked together. She even appeared in his dreams. He wanted to know everything about her. Emiliano watched her and therefore soon learned that she didn't have a boyfriend. He generally learned a lot about her, and for him this was valuable and important information. Sometimes Selena went with girlfriends to the movies, or just to walk in the park. And she also did figure skating, though without particular success, not seriously. She spent most of her time on studies, as she was going to enter a university in the capital. Selena dreamed of living and working in Mexico City, wanted to escape as quickly as possible from their small provincial town. Emiliano understood. He had to act quickly. She would fly away to her capital, and university study in Mexico City wasn't shining for him. Though he would go anywhere for her, he would get a job somewhere, work, and continue pursuing her. A year passed. During 10th grade, Emiliano never managed to get close to Selena. But unexpectedly, he started a romance with Patricia, a girl from a parallel class. Actually, the guy was popular, charismatic, cheerful, confident. He stood out favorably against the background of local smart nerds who blushed around girls and couldn't string two words together. Emiliano had plenty of admirers. Patricia herself took the initiative. She showed that she wouldn't be coy and play hard to get. Emiliano didn't resist circumstances, though he didn't stop dreaming about Selena. She became something like a beautiful dream for him, a guiding star, unattainable, but very desirable. And then already in 11th grade, closer to graduation, Emiliano's soul became heavy. Patricia, with her tenderness and intrusiveness, became disgusting. Friends became boring. It seemed as if he was deceiving himself, creating an illusion of a cheerful life so as not to think about the main thing. Parties, clubs, hangouts, dates, as if he was trying to distract himself from the real thing. And the real and main thing was her, Selena. Pure, sincere, somehow very, very his own. Seemingly close, but so infinitely far. Emiliano couldn't stand it and wrote her a note right during literature class. He had forgotten his book then. They were just studying 100 Years of Solitude, and his desk neighbor also didn't bring it. But Selena and her neighbor had a whole 2 copies between them. The girls were so diligent. They never forgot anything. Both brought Garcia Marquez to class. In general, Selena lent Emiliano her copy, and he, giving in to some impulse, wrote right in the book on the flyleaf, "I confessed my love to you, but you didn't believe me. But it was serious. Call me," and added his phone number below. The home number still, mobile phones at that time were just appearing among school children from the richest and most well-off families. Neither Emiliano nor Selena belonged to such lucky ones. They got mobile phones only a couple of years later. Emiliano wrote this just like that, on luck. He had long stopped giving Selena public signs of attention, just admired her from afar. Sometimes he deliberately ended up nearby to at least accidentally touch her, feel the smell of her hair, look into her gray eyes, feel the warmth emanating from her. Emiliano always felt some reciprocal reaction, barely perceptible, but it seemed to him that he was simply taking his wishes for reality. But Selena called. Emiliano happened to be home then and even answered the phone himself. He was supposed to go to the guys on the street, but he was delayed. Later, he thought about this many times. What if Selena hadn't reached him then? What if Emiliano had already managed to leave? Would Selena have decided on another call? Or would there have been nothing at all? "Hi," Selena said somewhat uncertainly. "I read your note." "Is it true?" "Yes," Emiliano answered in an unusually serious tone. "Selena, I really like you a lot. I've never felt anything like this for anyone." Emiliano wasn't preparing for the conversation in advance. He just said what he felt, what had long been in his heart. Clumsily, perhaps, but sincerely. He was even embarrassed a little, which was completely uncharacteristic of him. It seems this is exactly what ultimately won over Selena. They agreed to meet then, to take a walk. Emiliano didn't even warn Patricia, who was waiting for him. He completely forgot about her. She later screamed at him for this, called him names. And Emiliano first was silent, then apologized and said it was time for them to break up. Patricia cried. It seems she had seriously fallen in love with Emiliano. But all this was unimportant to him. The main thing was that Selena was now with him, and not alone. This became clear from that very first walk they took together. What happiness that was! Emiliano felt strong, kind, brave next to her. He wanted to protect her, defend her, make her happy. These were previously unknown but very pleasant feelings. Selena also blossomed next to him. She began to look a little more confident. He taught her to have fun. You can't just sit over textbooks all the time. When Selena laughed, Emiliano felt like the happiest person in the world. This was love. Pure, young, real. Only now did Emiliano begin to understand the classics who wrote about strong feelings. And even Emiliano's essays began to be held up as examples to the class, which had never happened before. For Selena's sake, Emiliano wanted to become better every day because she deserved only the best. Emiliano's happiness wasn't dimmed by Patricia's caustic jabs, who still couldn't come to terms with being dumped for a nerd and gray mouse, nor by the obvious dislike of Selena's parents, who dreamed of a completely different young man for their daughter, nor by his mother's admonishments from morning to night, reminding her son that in first place for him should be not girls, but studies, since admission was around the corner. What are you doing? They only give you C's because of their good attitude toward you. With such knowledge, you won't get into anywhere. You need to study, prepare for exams. And why did you get a job at a car wash? Emiliano had indeed gotten a job at an auto service as a car washer. After school, he would walk Selena home and immediately run there. He needed money. He wanted to spoil and delight Selena, buy her flowers, take her to movies and cafes. All this required financial investment, and Emiliano had no sponsors, so he hustled himself. After school, Selena studied lessons, went to university preparation courses, and in the evenings they were together. They walked, talked about everything in the world, embraced. Emiliano waited for these happy moments all day. Friends were offended. They said that in love Emiliano had completely forgotten about them. But at the beginning of their relationship, he generally didn't need anyone, only her. The rest seemed to stop existing for Emiliano for a while. Later, of course, he began communicating with others again. But still, Selena was always in first place for Emiliano, and the girl understood this perfectly. She reciprocated Emiliano's feelings completely. He knew, felt. Selena loved him very much too. And this was such happiness that it couldn't even be described. After graduation, Selena was admitted, as she had dreamed, to a university in the capital. Emiliano was happy for his beloved. She had put so much work into preparing for exams, and finally her efforts had paid off. Emiliano himself couldn't even handle the local university, which in principle was quite expected. His mother cried, wailed about her son's unsettled fate, and that with such an approach to life, he would die somewhere under a fence, poor and drunk. Emiliano comforted his mother as best he could. He had his own plans for life. He promised his mother that he would definitely try to enter university next year, that he would work part-time and prepare intensively. But the guy, of course, wasn't planning to do this. He just needed to cheer up mom a little. Emiliano planned to work in Mexico City, make money so that his beloved wouldn't need anything. He so wanted to drive Selena around in a beautiful car, take her to expensive restaurants, buy her beautiful brand name outfits. And Emiliano also dreamed of flying with Selena to the sea. That would be absolutely wonderful. They went to the capital together. True, since Selena was accompanied by her parents, who still couldn't stand Emiliano, it was like an adventure. They met in the vestibule between cars at an agreed time. It was fun. Both were filled with a premonition of some new, bright, interesting life. In Mexico City, Selena settled in a student dormitory. Emiliano initially lived in third-rate hotels. He couldn't afford more yet. It was hard for both. Selena faced intensive studies, adaptation to student life, cramped dormitory conditions. Emiliano spun like a squirrel in a wheel. He unloaded trucks at shopping centers, handed out flyers, and washed cars. All these were sometimes decent but very irregular earnings. It was enough only for food and rent of some kind of housing. And then Emiliano got a job at a construction site. They were building another shopping center, workers were needed, and things immediately went much better. Soon the guy was even able to rent an apartment for himself and Selena. Both were incredibly happy to finally be together. Of course, they had to economize on food, clothes, entertainment, but they were together. They lived in a separate apartment. This was their cozy nest. They got married, simply registered, without a lavish wedding. They informed their parents later, after the fact. This was a mutual decision. They understood that older relatives wouldn't be thrilled with this idea. Selena's parents couldn't stand Emiliano, and he knew this perfectly well. He heard how her mother described to her daughter the future that awaited her next to this slacker. He doesn't strive for anything. He's too frivolous and unreliable. You can't build a family with such a person. You'll cry plenty with him yet. Selena defended Emiliano, loved him. He felt this, understood, and greatly valued it. After the wedding, Emiliano and Selena's relationship only grew stronger. This stamp in the passport, it turned out, still had meaning. Years went by. Selena finished university, got her first job, earned pennies at first, essentially working for experience. But Emiliano toiled at the construction site, took side jobs. Their small family didn't live luxuriously, but didn't lack for anything either. True, Emiliano never managed to fulfill his old dream, to take his beloved to the sea. Apartment rental in Mexico City turned out to be too expensive, as was capital life in general. But from time to time, the young spouses could afford to dine at a restaurant. And then somehow, imperceptibly, these conversations began. Selena worked at a bank, communicated with female colleagues, saw successful men, and somehow gradually paradise in a hut stopped satisfying her. Darling, you need to develop, study, get an education. You can't spend your whole life toiling as a laborer at a construction site. Why not? Emiliano was genuinely surprised. The salary is decent, I manage. It's normal work. But there are no prospects, none at all. And besides, there's no stability either. You're not growing, not developing. This is what started the quarrels. Selena had changed greatly. She was no longer satisfied with the walls of their modest nest, clothes from the market, discounted groceries. She suddenly wanted a beautiful life, and her mother's lamentations didn't subside either. Only now Selena didn't stop her mother when she expressed dissatisfaction with her good-for-nothing son-in-law. At first, Emiliano tried to make surprises for Selena. He thought that his beloved wife was simply tired, that she lacked pleasant emotions. All this helped little. Selena only sighed upon receiving another bouquet and smiled slightly, as if out of politeness. It was hard to bear this. Therefore, Emiliano began staying out with friends after work more and more often. He'd stop by a bar with one company, sit in a pulque bar with another. Measured conversations about life, cheerful jokes, alcoholic drinks. All this distracted very well from gloomy thoughts that Emiliano didn't match Selena, that he had chosen a hat too big for himself. He didn't measure up to his wife. Now they quarreled also because of Emiliano's friends and drinking, and he had been used to running from problems this way since his youth. He painfully, tearfully lacked a father in his teenage years. So Emiliano went to male company to feel himself part of a brotherhood. Friends always knew how to chase away sadness. In this difficult situation with Selena, the men also supported their young colleague very well. Your woman is simply a mercenary person, reasoned Pedro, wise from life experience, who had 3 failed marriages behind him. They're all like that. You bring her too little money, so now she's looking for someone richer. She'll leave you soon, mark my words. She'll just wear down all your nerves first. Emiliano would have liked to object, but at that moment he thought exactly the same thing. Selena only needed money. Before, his earnings quite satisfied her, but now his wife's appetites had grown. And then this happened. One day Selena told Emiliano that she was expecting a child. Are you sure? Emiliano was a little frightened, but the main feeling was still joy. Enormous joy that soon he and Selena would become parents. Surely after this, everything would work out between them. They would care for the baby together, walk with him, raise him. Emiliano would teach the child everything he knew himself, would become an ideal father for him, the kind he had dreamed of his whole life. Selena would be a wonderful mother. That was for sure. Yes, lately there had been many disagreements between them, but in that moment when Selena announced that soon there would be 3 of them, they embraced and laughed like before, as if there hadn't been those ugly quarrels. I thought you wouldn't be happy, Selena admitted when the first delight subsided. Why would that be? Emiliano was surprised. We haven't planned anything yet. We wanted to get on our feet first, achieve success in life. Everything will be fine, don't worry. I promise the three of us will be happy. I'll move mountains, but you and the child won't lack for anything." Emiliano really was serious. He even took additional shifts at the construction site to save money by the time their heir was born. For some reason, the future father didn't doubt that they would have a son. But soon it became clear. No matter how hard you try, even if you toil at the construction site 24 hours a day, you won't earn much. This salary was quite enough for two people provided that Selena also earned something. But for three, especially with a non-working wife, they wouldn't manage. "Listen, I calculated everything here, and, maybe we should go back to our hometown? The capital is beyond our means right now." It wasn't easy for Emiliano to admit his inadequacy to Selena. But what else could he do? He tried very hard, worked without days off. The result didn't impress him, and Selena got angry. Perhaps partly this happened because of hormonal changes in her body. Besides, she had restrained herself for a long time, kept her thoughts to herself so as not to provoke quarrels. But here, "I told you, without education, nothing will work out. I asked you to at least finish courses while there was opportunity. And now what? I won't go to our backwater. I studied, tried, put in so much effort to escape from there. And now you're suggesting I go back? No way. Anything is better than that. Listen, but it's not for long. We'll have the baby, raise him a little. Grandma and Grandpa will help there. It'll be easier. Housing is simpler there. I'll both work and study. But here nothing works out. I've already tried every way, but no. Mom is right. You're just a worthless person. A good-for-nothing slacker. She's right about everything." Every word of Selena's wounded Emiliano to the heart. But deep down, anger was rising. What a princess. She demands a beautiful life. Rest by the sea, money, expensive boutiques. She saw who she was marrying. She said she loved him, that she would follow him anywhere. But herself, in general, they quarreled. It was an ugly quarrel, with insults, swearing, even breaking dishes. Emiliano couldn't stand it and left, slamming the door. He headed to one of his bachelor friends who, Emiliano knew for sure, would be on his side. This friend had long been disappointed in women and warned Emiliano not to expect anything good from ladies. Turns out he was right. Emiliano spent about a week at this friend's place. He was only glad for the company. Selena called her husband a couple of times, but he invariably hung up. Emiliano wanted to hear her voice, say something nice to her, ask for forgiveness, but foolish pride wouldn't allow it, because Selena had said too much to him in the heat of the moment. It turned out she didn't respect him at all, didn't believe he could achieve anything in this life. Selena held up as examples the husbands of her friends and colleagues, which was quite hurtful. But it was thanks to him, Emiliano, that Selena lived not in a dorm with cockroaches, but in a small but separate apartment. It was he who supported her when she was just starting to earn her pennies, working essentially for experience, but at least in her specialty. Thanks to his unstable and unpromising work, they stayed afloat. But apparently Selena didn't understand or appreciate this, which greatly hurt Emiliano. Let her sit alone now and think about her behavior. Let her realize how wrong she was. Emiliano didn't even go to work these days. He drank. His friends supported him in this harmful endeavor. It's more fun to get drunk together, while conducting lengthy conversations about the meaning of life and mercenary female nature. And when Emiliano finally returned home, a surprise awaited him. The absence of Selena's things immediately caught his eye. Her coat and jackets weren't on the hanger in the hallway. The shoe shelf looked completely empty. Only Emiliano's dusty sneakers stood there forlornly. The man, sensing trouble, looked in the wardrobes. Just as he thought, Selena had packed her things and left. Emiliano, gathering his thoughts, calculated that he had been absent for a whole week. During this time, she had done everything. Emiliano was seriously frightened. He was angry at Selena, but didn't want to lose her at all. He thought they would quarrel, then make up, and everything would be fine. They both just needed to let off steam. They were going to have a child soon. He needed both parents. He needed friendly and loving mom and dad. How else? He didn't even want to imagine the world without Selena and the child, and the baby shouldn't grow up without a father. Of course, Emiliano immediately rushed to search for his beloved. He was ready to beg, apologize, humiliate himself. She didn't answer calls, But through mutual acquaintances, Emiliano managed to learn that Selena was living with Carmen, her former groupmate. Emiliano rushed there, rang the doorbell for a long time until finally Selena's friend opened for him. Carmen looked at him with a contemptuous gaze, as if he were some disgusting worm, or worse. Emiliano didn't care. "Where's Selena? Can I talk to her?" "She left today, don't worry, Selena already filed for divorce. You won't even have to bother." "For divorce? What did you think?" Carmen began to heat up. "You don't earn properly, you drink, and you also call names. Who would live with such a loser? Too bad Selena came to her senses late. Didn't send you packing right away, fool." "Where did she go? Where should I look for her now?" "I won't tell you that. Don't even ask. But know this, she's doing well now. By the way, she asked me to give you a note if you suddenly came." Carmen disappeared into the apartment. A moment later, she appeared on the threshold again and handed Emiliano a sheet of paper folded in half. "Here, read this." Emiliano snatched this message. Carmen immediately slammed the door right in his face. He unfolded the sheet, stepped closer to the stairs, closer to the light, and greedily devoured the lines with his eyes. "We are different people, very different. My parents were right. We don't suit each other. I understood this too late. I don't want to see you anymore, that's for sure. I've had to pretend for a long time that you don't disgust me. I was young, stupid, in love. I thought you were different. I was wrong. Such things happen. I need a different person. I dream of a beautiful life, travel, a big apartment, prosperity. You're content with little. You have the right. But I also have the right to choose something else. I'm leaving, forever. Don't look for me. I already filed for divorce. On the third day after you left. You don't even have to appear in court. They'll divorce us anyway. The main thing is I have the application. I'm starting a new life. Now the most important thing, the child. He doesn't exist and won't exist. I decided we don't need this. At the clinic, they solved this problem quickly and inexpensively. Now goodbye. I hope we never see each other again." It seems Emiliano howled then like a wounded beast. He probably frightened the neighbors, but he didn't care, just to give at least some outlet to the feelings and emotions overwhelming him. He had never been in such pain before, to the point of nausea, to stars in his eyes. Everything hurt, every centimeter of his body, every particle of his insides, even his hair, it seemed. From somewhere deep in his soul, anger rose, black, all-consuming. When Emiliano read that Selena essentially called him a loser and was leaving him because he couldn't provide her with a decent life and didn't strive for anything, it was of course hurtful. She seemed to put him on the same level as second and even third-rate people. Hurtful, but bearable. Emiliano already had a plan in his head of how to fix the situation. He would definitely prove to his wife that she was wrong. He would throw all his strength and energy into making money, start his own business. For this, after all, you don't need education, only brains and desire to work. But when Emiliano got to the lines about the child, the baby he already loved with all his soul, Emiliano had dreamed of quickly taking his child in his arms, showing him the world, teaching him everything, becoming the best father for him. So many plans and hopes were connected with this little one. But Selena had done something terrible. Their baby was no more, and never would be. This didn't fit in his head. This was monstrous, so much so that it compressed his chest. This terrible act didn't match Selena. She wasn't like that. She was quiet, kind, good. Or was Emiliano mistaken? Had he taken Selena for someone she wasn't really? He had made the same mistake about her as she had about him. Emiliano was glad that Selena was far away now. He was so angry at her that if she were nearby, he might have done something he would very much regret later. Emiliano deliberately didn't try to find his wife through mutual acquaintances, though he could have done so. He didn't want to see her at all. After the proper time, Emiliano received a document about divorce by mail. By that time, he was drinking so heavily and continuously that he lost his job at the construction site. Who needs such an employee? Emiliano drank sometimes alone, sometimes in the company of some barely known individuals who always surround a person in trouble to join in the drinking. Several times Emiliano got into drunken fights. Once he even ended up in the hospital with a concussion. He was discharged and back to the bottle. Only this way, only in oblivion could he somehow breathe. Selena, sincere, kind, soulful, good, dear. She had never existed. The person Emiliano had loved more than life for so many years. He had apparently invented himself, and it wasn't easy to realize this. But the sharpest pain was caused by thoughts of the unborn baby. Emiliano hadn't saved him. He hadn't done anything for him to be born. Some future father. Because of some stupid offense, he ran away to a friend. He was afraid to face the truth, to take responsibility for the family. Of course, it was easier to leave, slamming the door, and drink for more than a week than to try to prove to his wife that he was capable of providing for all three of them. To prove it with actions, to reassure her. Guilt, pain, anger at Selena. Perhaps these were the only feelings Emiliano experienced during that difficult period. He didn't worry about his future at all. He simply didn't have the strength. A little more time passed. Emiliano had no more money to stay in Mexico City. He was asked to leave the apartment. He lost his job and nothing held him in this city. He had never particularly liked the capital. It reminded him of an anthill where everyone was always rushing somewhere. In general, Emiliano packed his things and headed to the train station. He barely scraped together enough for a ticket. And it was then, on the way to the station, that Emiliano met Selena, completely by chance. She didn't recognize him. Emiliano had changed greatly. Now he looked like some vagrant or marginal, swollen, unshaven, in worn, stale clothes. Then he didn't care how he looked. Emiliano decided to walk to the station. He had no money left for transport. Everything went to the ticket home. The journey was long but quite manageable. And so, walking along a wide, sun-drenched avenue, he saw her in the crowd of people. He noticed something familiar in the distance. Maybe even felt it, sensed it. He looked closer and was stunned. She was walking on the other side of the street, not alone, with a young man. They were smiling at each other. Selena looked happy, was glowing all over. So little time had passed since she could already smile, have fun, socialize, as if she didn't regret at all the past relationship, the child. Emiliano even clenched his fists in anger. Selena looked simply beautiful, a light sundress hugging her slender figure, loose chestnut hair, light makeup. Her companion clearly belonged to those people who could provide Selena with a beautiful life, and he looked at her so that he simply couldn't take his eyes off her. Emiliano's heart clenched painfully. He wanted to approach them, tell Selena everything that had built up in his soul, break her companion's face so he wouldn't look so respectable and happy. But of course, Emiliano walked past. Then he turned around and watched the departing couple for some time. What was past. And yet Selena didn't let him go completely even at home. His mother, of course, received her son with open arms. She was the only person who gave him unconditional love, accepted him as he was. Even so gloomy, battered, broken, Emiliano decided to start a new life, go into business. He wanted to prove to Selena that she was wrong. In his dreams, Emiliano imagined himself as a successful person with a new apartment, expensive car, and beautiful wife. He wanted Selena to see him like that one day and regret that she had left him. And most importantly, to repent for her monstrous act, which she most likely now considers a correct and wise decision. His mother advised her son not to get involved in adventures, but to study, get a welder's education, and go work at a factory. Good money, stable, respected work, doesn't take long to learn, and your hands have always been in the right place. Everything will work out. This way, you'll gradually get back on your feet. But Emiliano didn't want to act gradually. He dreamed of having everything at once. Besides, a former abandoned husband who became a welder clearly wouldn't impress Selena. Emiliano pulled himself together and began implementing his goal. To start a business, initial investments were needed. Emiliano went into debt, took a bank loan, and borrowed money from acquaintances. Emiliano didn't even think that this was a certain risk. It seemed that success awaited him around the nearest corner. But of course, the auto repair shop that Emiliano tried to open never really got off the ground. He had taken on the wrong business. Emiliano understood little about the specifics of such a business, and he didn't understand accounting or law at all. The shop not only didn't bring profit, but drove its unlucky owner into even greater debt. There was nowhere to get money, and it began. Emiliano was beaten, threatened. They even blackmailed his mother, saying if you don't return the debts, she'll be in trouble. Emiliano ran from problems in his usual way. He grabbed a bottle. Under the influence of the intoxicating drink, his brain perceived the terrible reality more or less tolerably. But the debts didn't go anywhere from this. His mother worried about her son. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was scared precisely for Emiliano. She even sold her apartment so he could pay off his debts. Nothing. We'll live in Grandma's one room for now. Anyway, the housing has been empty since her death. At least it's peaceful. Emiliano was ashamed, of course. He couldn't look his mother in the eyes. She had deteriorated greatly during this difficult period when creditors came or called them every day. The woman literally aged before his eyes and her heart problems worsened. Emiliano understood that all this was because of him. It turned out that everyone who loved him suffered beside him. He still did as his mother advised, went to study to be a welder. And soon it turned out that this work was very much to Emiliano's liking. He did well at it, and he liked seeing the results of his actions. They paid well, enough for a decent life. Emiliano, of course, didn't live luxuriously, and his wealth probably wouldn't have impressed someone like Selena, but at least he had everything at home. Good food and necessary household appliances. Emiliano did renovations, sent his mother to a sanatorium. His mother? Her health greatly worried the man. That period when her son drank, almost died, and then also hid from creditors hadn't passed without consequences for her. Her heart. Now his mother had the best doctors in the city and all necessary medications. But the illness took its toll over the years. The woman grew weak, thin, pale. She very much wanted to see Emiliano as a happy family man. She often talked about this with her son. "Oh, come on!" Emiliano waved her off. "Apparently it's not for me." He really couldn't communicate with women for long. Selena, no one could even come close to comparing with her. Emiliano didn't develop such feelings for anyone else, and he wasn't willing to settle for less anymore. No, he of course met with someone from time to time, but it wasn't real. Emiliano seemed to have forgotten how to love, and Selena was to blame for this. Emiliano could no longer trust women that way. He constantly looked for and found some flaws and shortcomings in them that he could never come to terms with, and every romance inevitably ended in disappointment. And then his mother was gone. The heart, the treacherous illness, finally took its toll. Another heavy blow of fate. Emiliano withdrew into himself, began drinking again. He had promised his mother that he would never touch a bottle again. She was always afraid that Emiliano would repeat his father's fate, and he didn't want to worry his mother. He said he wouldn't drink, and he didn't drink. But when his mother was gone, this lost meaning. Who was there to try for now? True, later Emiliano pulled himself together. Where else could he go? Life still had to go on, though it was unclear why. So these years flew by. Emiliano still lived alone, worked as a welder, from time to time met with someone. Once every 2 or 3 years, he vacationed at seaside resorts. He liked to sit alone on the shore and watch the waves. His soul immediately became so calm. Emiliano never became a successful person. He had neither a luxurious apartment nor a beautiful car, but he had reliable work and everything necessary for life. The only pity was that he never started a family. It seemed that now it was too late to think about this. He was late. He hadn't spent his time and energy on the right things in his youth. Emiliano often remembered Selena. He thought about how she was doing. He was almost sure that everything had worked out for her as she wanted. She probably had a strong, big family, children, a rich, successful husband who could provide them all with a beautiful life. Good work. Selena definitely hadn't wasted her life in vain like he, Emiliano, had. Resentment toward her still lived in Emiliano's heart. He still wanted to prove something to her. He didn't feel such strong emotions toward anyone around him. Selena meant a lot to him, even after so many years. He knew nothing about her. Selena lived in Mexico City. They no longer had mutual acquaintances. Emiliano hadn't found her on social networks. How was he supposed to know how she was now? He could only guess. Therefore, hearing from his former teacher that Selena would be at the graduates' reunion evening, Emiliano got excited. Imagine that. She was in this city now, very close. Emiliano understood that he very much wanted to see her and still show her that she had been wrong. This desire hadn't gone anywhere. Only he needed to prepare. Selena should regret that she had left him many years ago, that she hadn't let their child be born. She should repent, feel crushed, humiliated, guilty. For this, Emiliano needed to appear before her as a successful person, and so he borrowed this suit from his neighbor and rented an expensive car. He even took out a loan to make a grand gesture: order expensive champagne for everyone. Let Selena see what he was like. Let her think that Emiliano had long stopped counting money. This would be revenge. Yes, such revenge. Much more effective than the most hurtful, sharp words. Selena and Emiliano sat at the far end of the table. The evening was in full swing. Cheerful music played. Most of the former students and teachers were dancing. On the tables crowded empty plates and bottles of expensive champagne, which, as planned, Emiliano had bought for everyone. The gesture had indeed turned out quite impressive. Emiliano looked exactly as he had calculated: wealthy, successful, confident. Even tipsy former female graduates tried to flirt with him. Surprisingly, playing this role was simple and pleasant. Pangs of conscience didn't torment Emiliano. Yes, this was all a lie, but it didn't hurt anyone. Even Selena, strangely enough. Selena looked simply magnificent. Seeing her after so many years, Emiliano clearly realized his feelings hadn't gone anywhere. He still loved her. Years, of course, had left their mark on his ex-wife's appearance. But this even suited Selena. Confidence and wisdom had appeared in her eyes, smoothness in her movements. Slender, graceful, beautiful. She was confused seeing her ex-husband among the guests, and at first kept her distance from Emiliano. He approached her himself, though it was scary, but the man, of course, didn't show it. He behaved confidently and boldly. He started a routine conversation, as if he had no resentment toward her, as if Emiliano wasn't angry at his ex-wife for breaking his life. Emiliano acted as if that story now meant nothing to him. Many years had passed. He had a new life. There was no place in it for old grievances, since this life was happy and cloudless. "I work as an economist in a tourism company," Selena told about herself. "It's a large firm. Thanks to working there, I also travel all over the world." "Great," Emiliano praised. "I knew everything would work out for you career-wise. You were always goal-oriented." "That's right," Selena smirked. "Well, how about you? I see you've settled quite well in life." "I have my own business. Auto repair shops, gas stations, branches throughout the country," Emiliano said as if reluctantly. "But it doesn't matter. I found my niche working quietly." Selena became interested in her ex-husband's business. Extreme amazement was written on her face. She wanted to know more, but Emiliano pretended he didn't want to talk about work during leisure time. "As you say," Selena smiled. "Honestly, I didn't think that you would become like this." "I know, but there were people who believed in me." Emiliano noted with pleasure the regret that flickered for a moment on Selena's face. "Well, how are things on the personal front?" Emiliano asked. I live with Maximiliano. He loves me, takes care of me. We're good together," Selena answered, slightly embarrassed and hiding her eyes. Maximiliano. This name, coming from Selena's lips, unexpectedly, painfully stabbed Emiliano in the heart. He immediately remembered that companion of his ex-wife, so respectable and smiling, whom Emiliano had met on the way to the station. Together? And what about children? "It didn't work out." Selena lowered her eyes. Emiliano was again overwhelmed by longing for their unborn child with Selena. She had gotten rid of him then. Probably that's why she couldn't give birth afterward. Emiliano knew that because of such procedures, women sometimes have health problems later. Surprisingly, the man suddenly felt very sorry for Selena. He immediately lost the desire to take revenge on her. "Well, what about you?" "Married, 3 children," Emiliano blurted out automatically. This was a pre-prepared version. If he had known that Selena had no children, he wouldn't have lied about his own offspring. "That's wonderful. You're a happy person. I'm glad for you, really." Selena put her hand on Emiliano's shoulder. Yes, regret and sadness could be read in her eyes, though she hid these feelings behind a light smile. But Emiliano, contrary to his expectations, didn't feel the joy of victory. Only sadness that they were not destined to be together now. Because Selena, if she learned the truth about Emiliano, would surely look at him with contempt again. An ordinary welder from a small one-room apartment. A loser. And in relationships, she had some Maximiliano. Life in the capital. Good work. No, the real Emiliano was still not her level. But her eyes. You could read that Selena had sadness in her heart. She surely regretted her action very much. If not about leaving her loser husband, then definitely about the child. About the baby she had so easily given up. Emiliano had wanted to make Selena repent, but now he himself felt an unbearable sense of guilt, which he had to hide behind jokes and a broad smile. After all, it was he who couldn't support his wife in a difficult situation. Because of him, she decided on that terrible step. And because of him, she wasn't as happy in life as she could have been, as she deserved. And he, Emiliano, had also wanted to hurt her. He had thrown dust in everyone's eyes. A successful businessman. He came in an expensive car, treated everyone to champagne, a clown. He wanted to hug Selena, press her to himself, kiss her like many years ago. But he couldn't. She wasn't free, and he had lied completely. He disgusted himself. Emiliano left school early. Selena stayed. She met her old friend and they got to talking. But she still came out to see Emiliano off together with that same friend. Selena saw his car and smiled. "What a great guy you are. I was wrong about you, and I'm very glad about this. Glad that everything worked out well for you." Selena spoke sincerely. She really was happy for Emiliano. His imagined success hadn't humiliated her, hadn't made her regret her action. And this made Emiliano so ashamed that his ears burned. Good thing it was already dark and Selena couldn't see this. "Well then, ladies," Emiliano bowed with exaggerated gallantry before his former classmates, which caused their cheerful laughter. At this moment, the women over 40 really resembled 10th grade girls. Emiliano got behind the wheel and headed straight to the paid parking lot, where he needed to return the car before midnight so as not to pay for the next day's rental. And then, taxi and home, drinking again so as not to think, not to remember. Emiliano shouldn't have gone to this graduates' reunion evening. He only reopened old wounds, and once again realized that many years ago he had lost the love of his life through his own stupidity and weakness. But they could have had everything work out well then if Selena had agreed many years ago to return home briefly to this city, if he hadn't behaved like a weakling and had supported his wife in a difficult situation, if they had both been more tolerant of each other and had worthily survived that difficult period. Selena opened the door to her apartment with a key. She didn't like night flights. They disrupted her schedule. Then it wasn't easy to get into the usual rhythm. But what could she do? Tomorrow she had to go to work. She simply couldn't stay longer at home, in her dear, small hometown. And honestly, she didn't want to. She had visited relatives as planned. She had even gone to the mathematical school graduates' reunion evening. Selena secretly hoped she would meet her ex-husband there. She both hoped for and feared this at the same time. Emiliano. He could be in such a state now that it would be hard for her to see him. Degraded, drunk. And her guilt could be in his condition. Some vague hope lived in her heart. For what? Selena herself didn't know. Finally, the door opened, and the woman found herself within her dear and beloved walls. Maximiliano, a golden retriever, jumped out of the bedroom. In his teeth, he dragged slippers. The dog always did this when his mistress returned home. Selena hugged Maximiliano around the neck. He wagged his tail so joyfully that it seemed the walls should have trembled and whitewash should have fallen from the ceiling. Selena hadn't lied. She really had Maximiliano, kind and very caring. They really were good together. But Selena had no husband. She, of course, met with men, went on dates, chose, searched for the ideal one, and seemingly worthy candidates came her way. But surprisingly, none of them could awaken in her those feelings that Emiliano had. And none of them loved her the way he did. Selena had been married twice more. Only there was no spiritual closeness, no mutual understanding, no passion, nothing at all. And Selena wasn't willing to settle for that. Then many years ago, after that very last quarrel with Emiliano, Selena almost regretted her words. She understood that she had gone too far. Emiliano, of course, was offended. Selena had made him out to be a complete failure. Besides, she had compared him to other men, which was completely beyond the pale. He slammed the door, left and didn't answer her calls. He started drinking. Selena, of course, was angry. She was very angry, and she really filed for divorce, only she didn't get rid of the baby. She didn't even have such thoughts. Everything happened by itself. Miscarriage. The doctors said it wasn't because of stress. The fetus was initially unviable. Such things sometimes happen. Even if everything had been ideal in their relationship with her husband, this baby wasn't destined to be born. And still, Selena blamed Emiliano for everything. How angry she was at him. She was ready to kill him. And she decided to start a new life. She wrote him a letter. She lied that she had gotten rid of the child herself. Of course, to make it hurt him more. After all, she knew that Emiliano would suffer. Well, let him. That's what Selena was aiming for. And that was all. Deep down, Selena hoped that Emiliano would look for her. He would find her, bring her back, and they would be together again. After all, those feelings that were between them, sincere, real, strong. And that's the most important thing. But no. From acquaintances, Selena learned that Emiliano had returned to his hometown. Then she even cried from offense and disappointment. Really, in Emiliano's opinion, wasn't she worthy of fighting for? Selena tried to forget herself in work. Of course, she achieved something and was very proud of it. She was able to buy a small apartment in Mexico City, a car, get a job at a large firm. But on the personal front, everything was completely different from what she had dreamed. Selena never met a person who could awaken feelings in her. That night, returning home, Selena couldn't fall asleep for a long time. She lay embracing a pillow. She thought, remembered. Emiliano was great. He had managed to arrange his life. He had business, family. If it weren't for this family, perhaps they would have left school together yesterday, never to part again. This is probably what Selena secretly hoped for, preparing for the graduates' reunion evening. Next to the bed on his own mat, Maximiliano snorted. Beloved, faithful dog.